You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. You are watching the Business Talk Show. I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And backstage with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Al Cini. Welcome, sir.
Dr. Jacalyn, it's so good to be here. By the way, I'm doing this for a reason. Ask me why I'm doing this.
Why are you doing that, Al?
Moving my head back and forth because one of these books behind me is a psych textbook. And interesting thing about the human brain is that it doesn't necessarily register images. It actually registers motion of images. We're designed psychologically to spot things that move, which means that in a modern digital world, making videos is much more impactful than just showing still images or plain text. And that's why I'm so excited about our guest today. I think it's going to be a fun conversation on the whole idea of making things that move to tell stories.
Well, I'm excited that our guest is here. I had the pleasure of meeting him. We just decided it was back in January. He's in Pittsburgh, and it was very cold there. So I'm glad that it's the summer. It's hard to believe how fast time goes by. It seems like I just met him. But before we bring him out, Mr. Cini, I'm going to spotlight you, and I'd love to hear what is going on over at BCAT.
That is a terrifying thought, but let's see if I can't. Let me move around a little while I tell the story. Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is a methodology for aligning the members of an organization with the purpose they serve. Everybody wants to love their work. Everybody wants to love what they do. Everybody works harder and smarter when they love their work. So what we do really is create an experience for a group of people that seduces everybody to fall in love with the work they do. And it's we get a fun result. We have a great time doing it. And as a consequence of what we do, all the KPIs improve. So product loyalty, client loyalty improves, employee loyalty improves, productivity improves, profitability improves. All those things get better when people fall in love with the work they do. And that's what we do with the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. And thanks for the chance to explain that, Dr. Jacalyn.
You're welcome. And how much do you love what you're doing?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I could do more of it. I've gotten to a point where I'm so busy, and we've had this conversation before, that I'm beginning to wonder how I'm going to keep up. But truly, honestly, when I get a chance to work with a bunch of people and move them from where they are to where they really love being, we get great results. And sometimes the best results we get are for some of the quietest people on the team, the people that don't normally speak up. They're the ones that really feel empowered and motivated, and their stories are great stories, and love the opportunity of sharing them with everybody.
That's fantastic. And I'm wondering, Mr. Cini, when you're in a group, are you one of the people who loves to speak up, or are you more on the quiet side? Because I know when I was in my corporate career, I would just sit and listen. I would love to, some people always had to have the spotlight. They were always front and center saying whatever it was, and I would just be kind of in the back. I had a lot to say, but would keep it to myself.
Well, here we are on a talk show, so I don't have a problem with the whole idea of talking. That's a comfortable thing for me. But when you're facilitating something like BCAT, it's really about spotlighting everybody else and giving them a chance to talk. So I don't do as much talking there, but I do a lot of listening. And because you pick up things as people talk, and then spotting them and bringing them out just brings them out of their shells, and you get great results that way.
You can actually change the way someone feels about themselves, their self-esteem, and their ability to work on a team, all by doing what you're doing.
It's true. And, what I like about what we do is that it doesn't matter whether you just started yesterday or you've been with the company or on that team for 20 or 30 years. Everybody's voice is equally valid. Everybody's point of view is equally valuable. And so I think the whole idea that you can make the whole team part of a team, not just special people, but everybody, that's kind of fun for me.
Well, it's fun to watch you light up as you talk about it. So
No,
I'm very happy for you.
Thanks for the
Yes.
chance to do it.
For sure. We are going to take a break and then bring out our guest. I don't want to have to interrupt him to go to commercial break. So we're going to watch something I think is really interesting. It's about, and you have a big background with the UK, but the royal horses. So the horses that you see that are always dressed in full regalia and, for the queen and for the monarchy. This is them at a time of peace and exercise, and they are on a very famous beach called the Holcomb Beach, where a lot of films have been produced. So let's just take a look at this, and then we'll be right back with our guest, Christopher R. Evans. Stay with us here on The Business Talk Show.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. You're watching The Business Talk Show, and you look like you're speechless. What are you going to say?
It's all about the relationship between people and animals like the horse. Wonderful, wonderful thing to watch. It's all about motion, which means it's a perfect kind of a segue into what Chris Evans' company does.
Absolutely. Christopher R. Evans has a full-service creative production and post-production studio, creating branded video content, motion design, 2D and 3D animation for broadcast, digital, social, and OTT. Let's bring him on. Joining us from Pittsburgh, Mr. Christopher R. Evans. Hi.
Well, hello, Dr. Jacalyn, and hello, Al.
So nice to have you with us.
Oh, this is going to be such a great interview, and it's so important, I think, for people out there that are maybe struggling for finding interesting ways to engage a shifting marketplace. The 21st century is nothing like the 20th century. This year in the 21st century is nothing like 2 years ago. So the whole idea that in order to tell your story, you need to engage people's visual senses with motion, I think that's such an important part of your message. How do you do that, Chris?
Yeah, Al, and first off, thank you to both you and Dr. Jacalyn for having us. And it is indeed a gorgeous summer day here in the outskirts of Pittsburgh and Fox Chapel. And I think we'll take it over the first time when I met Dr. Jacalyn in January, and it was snowing in both of our parts of the country. Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head, Al. The bottom line is not just in the United States, but around the world, there's a fight for attention when you're trying to get a message out, whether that be to promote a service, to sell a product, to get someone to learn about your organization, or to perhaps donate, fundraising. There's lots of different reasons why people turn to video for communications. The bottom line is it's one of the most impactful ways of getting people to pay attention to what you're talking about and to learn critical pieces of information about your message. And you touched a little bit on motion design and animation, 3D animation, 2D animation are, they're not new concepts. I mean, think back to product marketing going back in the 50s. Mr. Clean was one of the first and most popular, even today, animated characters that helps promote a product. But he's memorable. Charlie from Star-Kissed Tuna. And even in very serious pursuits such as medicine, sometimes using character animation is a really great way of easing the fear of a patient who's about to go in to do a procedure, or to help a child understand something important, like staying away from a poisonous substance like Mr. Yuck, and the stickers and the campaigns that were run right out of Pittsburgh here so many years ago. But video continues to be the predominant way of effectively communicating a message to any audience.
And I just want to add in the complexity of it, because a lot of people think it's just about making things move.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've got features in products like PowerPoint that allow us to animate fonts and bounce objects around squares and circles and all that. But I don't think anybody really appreciates the value of a moving image that is branded with your colors, that is consonant with your message. And you really need a pro to do that for you, right? That's not the kind of thing that's not a DIY kind of thing, is it?
No, it isn't. And when it is done that way, it certainly reflects that. And even a brand that's an upstart brand wants to put their best foot forward. Look, it all begins, Al, with a great script and a great story. And if you have a great story about a product or a service or an organization or a place or an experience, and you marry that with subpar video or clumsily put together motion design or animation, it cheapens the overall message of what you're trying to communicate. It can be distracting. More often than not, it can be disengaging. It can have the opposite effect of what you're trying to do. I mean, think about it as, using an analogy of a hotel lobby. If you walked in and it was dank and dirty and, unappealing, you'd probably turn back around and walk up the street. Same is true with a video. For a well-produced video to help support a key brand message, it has to be done properly. And that begins with a great script. It begins with great creative, but then it's followed through with thoughtful shots of what's captured, how it's lit, what's the sound like. And all of that does require professionals who understand how to do that, and do that in a way that engages with your audience. From the beginning to the end, from production to post-production, having a company like PMI handle that ensures that you're going to get your message across in a way that you're proud to represent it.
That's
Christopher. Yeah, that is very important. A question I have as someone who is a relatively new business owner, business owners make a lot of mistakes, unfortunately, when we first start out, right? And a lot of people are contacting us about, you should buy this service and that service, and we spend money here and there, and it was all a waste. So when should somebody reach out to you if they're a new business owner? Should they, try things out themselves for a while? Like, what would you suggest before contacting you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Dr. Jacalyn, and one that goes back to, really the dawn of time when you think about marketing. It's the classic chicken or the egg. My advice to any organization that's looking to invest in a video is to understand your brand message and to work with professionals even on that aspect, whether they be internal people to your company or firms that can help, like ours, help get a cohesive brand message about what we're trying to say about a product or service. A lot of times, friends of mine in the early stage investment communities, what we call the angel investment communities, and the follow-on rounds that come in early stage seed capital, will tell me that they wish that their early investments had a video that explained their product, because it's sometimes hard to understand, especially if you're dealing with a technology product or something that has some level of intricacy, or if it's a consumer product good that may be up against hundreds, thousands of other products that do similar things. So the correct way to approach it as a business owner is to understand what's feasible from a marketing budget as a whole. Where does that money have to be allocated across the totality of your brand spend, and find which piece of that can be applied to video. The good news about it is, if you build with the end in mind, come up with a coherent go-to-market message, video can play a very critical role even when you're early on, because you're telling a very different story than when the product or the service or the business is in a more mature stage. We often advise our clients to think of approaching video in a campaign mentality, not a one-off that you're spending a significant portion of your marketing spend towards and it's a throwaway, but something that can be used thoughtfully across the various channels where your audience lives to engage them and to have a specific call to action. You don't necessarily sell someone because of the video, but you may be able to get them excited enough to learn more, talk to a representative. In other cases, it is a quicker message that you're able to disseminate, get people excited, get them into your proverbial door or website to purchase. So it all depends on what we're trying to market, how we're trying to market it. But the best thing to do is work with people that have a trusted reputation that can guide you thoughtfully what's best for you and how you apply your marketing spend. So I'd say engage early.
So you're making a point
Thank
too.
you.
I don't need to be Procter & Gamble to be able to afford you.
You most certainly don't. And I will tell you, in this business, it is often intimidating when you see that companies like ours work with global multinational corporations. Yes, you'll see, Rolex or PPG or large companies on our show highlight reel. Why? Because the work's excellent, and because that's how we get the next one of those. But for every one of those, there's a thoughtful, shorter, web-oriented or social media-oriented campaign for a company that's just hitting that stride and looking to get their first 1,000 customers in the door. I mean, you take a look at a well-produced video, and sure, I mean, you're into the thousands of dollars of spend. It's all relative as to what we're trying to do, where it's going to live. Are we talking to media buyers about putting placements, or is it just on your website? Lots of variables to think through. And again, that's when, a company like ours can help you make an intelligent decision and prioritize what you're trying to do with your messaging.
Great.
Thank you, Christopher. A question I have is in reference to branding. So I know myself when I first started, and Al and I talked about this, there's a lot of push about the website. It's the website. But meanwhile, the branding isn't right. So again, chicken or egg. So how much focus, how much of your budget should you put into your branding?
Yeah, I mean, brand is imperative, and brand means a lot of different things to a lot of different companies. Some people think it could be as simple as standardizations of colors and fonts, and that is a very important piece of it. But again, what we're trying to do is capture the essence of the message and allow the brand to be an experience that emphasizes the qualities we're trying to put in front of our audience or audiences, right? Many times companies may have a series of products or services that apply to different audiences. Tailor the message, even down to the level of a video or an email campaign or the experience of a given page on a website to those audiences, and do it in a cohesive, coherent manner that makes sense and is authentic across each of those touch points. Brand is a very important place to begin. But sometimes talking about building a product or service oriented video can actually influence the brand story. It can help you think almost internally about the aspects, the emotional pieces of what someone feels when they use your product or service or come to your facility. We want to tell that story. Again, I come back to the fact that the two most important things when you're dealing with a video production of any size are the script and the budget. And you have to begin with those things in mind in the beginning. One can often shape the other, and brevity. You know, the hardest thing in the world for people who do talking for a living is knowing how to do an economy of words or an economy of visuals. You may have the world's greatest product, service, or facility and want to show every single corner, every single aspect, and that would be the wrong move. You need to be able to capture just the essence of what makes that impactful enough for the audience to pay attention. You know, Al and I talked a little bit before the show today about today's attention span, and Lord knows the internet is filled with facts that tell you how short the buyer's attention span is, and that is true. So the key is being able to come up with something very impactful that hits on the message and those visuals that support that message. What we tape is guided by what we're trying to capture, and allowing that to guide whether we're doing a live action video or an animation or a combination of the two.
It's that is a really good point. Of the people out there that are watching and listening, is it business owners you typically talk with, Chris, or the chief marketing officer, or I mean, who typically in a company calls you and asks for help?
That's a great question, Al. Obviously depends on the size and type of company. When you're dealing with a medium-sized business or a small business, it can often be the CEO, the founder, especially in the cases of some of those technology companies. They're, you know, the chief engineer is often the chief bottle washer and the chief marketing officer. They need lots of help on brand and almost detaching themselves from the product story to be able to know what the audience needs to hear as opposed to what they want to tell you about it. So that can be the case in a smaller business. When you're dealing with the kind of companies that we deal with that are larger and in nature, and again, large is also respective to what size are we talking about. If an organization is large enough to have a formal marketing or a marcom department, often the CMO is my buyer. Other times it could be the chief communications officer. Sometimes those titles can be misleading. It could be the manager or director of marketing or the person responsible for sales that has a budget to be able to apply forward towards the digital experience, the website and or a video. And I would say if you take a look at, the kind of work that PMI does and has done for many years, it's easy to see a lot of those larger publicly traded companies because they do spend a lot of time and money on advertising in a video form. Those places have various constituents that we work with. Sometimes even their agency of record, if there is one in place, we will work as a collaborative partner to a creative agency. But for organizations that are, I would say 100 million in revenue and below, that's often the role that we play. Our chief creative officer will come in and work in lieu of a chief marketing officer and work very closely with the product engineers to tell a story. And again, you're not limited by any type of industry or vertical. My goodness, 1 minute we could be working on something for a local charity that has a component that's a print piece that will lead in addition to a video. Mm-hmm. Other times, we're working with a company that is well established that has thousands of locations across the globe. How do we service them? Well, our team is of a certain size and ability to be agile depending on what we're doing. Dial it up or dial it down. We don't need the creative director involved in every single conversation, but we know when to apply that. And again, I think that's why so many people for so many years have turned to PMI. We've been around since 1985. When the commercial cameras were as big as the deck that I'm sitting on. And now, of course, it's a lot more, technology enables us to be a lot more agile. We just finished filming at a country club earlier this week with a drone. Thing is frightening to look at, but boy, is it effective. And you could get close-up shots that once upon a time you could only do with a point of view camera. So it really depends on the type of organization. Sometimes my favorite clients, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been a part of a couple startup companies. I love working with the company when they're first at bat. They're ready to do this for the very first time. They're passionate about their product or service. They've got the money, they've got the funding in place, but they're really ready to have that helping hand to tell the brand story in an impactful way. We love those kinds of stories. Love working with them as much as working with the Procter & Gamble's of the world.
That's great. It's got to be a lot of fun for you. And, I know for a lot of people out there, it feels like it's unapproachably difficult to get involved in something like this. Yeah. A lot of people think for a couple of bucks, you call a company up like Fiverr. You don't even call them. You email a company like Fiverr. You give them a commission. They send you back a video, whatever that is. If you really want a quality job done, though, you need to talk to somebody who understands how to tell a story with video. And I think that's where you guys come in.
Yeah, Al, I completely agree. And I certainly would never belittle anyone in the business who does what they do. There's a place for that type of resource. And again, if it's perhaps your very first at bat, and you have a very limited budget, respectively, maybe that's the right place for you. But, it's kind of like that old 7-Up commercial, when your tastes grow up. You go to 7-Up. Remember that? We're old enough to remember that one.
Oh, yeah.
And see, look at the power of that 30 years later, 40 years later. When your brand is at a point where it requires a level of sophistication and an ability to produce something that has an evergreen quality that can go across multiple channels, whether it's OTT, web, or broadcast, it's time to call in the big leaguers, and it's time to call in people that know what you're doing. I often say, there's a lot of guys that can pour concrete if your sidewalk's what you need. But when you're building a house from scratch, chances are you're dealing with a professional engineering firm. It's very much the same in this world. Just because someone hangs their shingle out and says they're a creative or they can shoot a video, you do get what you pay for in this business. And again, there's so many aspects to think about, from the audio quality to the post-production to choosing the right music that fits the tone of the piece, not to mention script writing. So again, we're fortunate to have all of that in one house, albeit some of our resources are spread throughout the country. They're all part of our team, and we gel really well with them. I think that's another piece, for your audience members that might have multiple locations. A company like PMI, we can film wherever it needs to be filmed. I can be in Austin, Texas one day with a crew local, we employ people local to the area there under our management. Next, 2 days later, I'm out in Walnut Creek. So if there's multiple facilities that need to be featured, and then there are other options, like maybe we look at stock image or stock video. Don't like to do that as much because it's not quite as bespoke. But again, our magicians and wizards can do a lot with that too when needed.
Sure.
But it's, building a quality video, something that really serves the brand, requires a bit of time, thoughtfulness, and investment.
And to your point, I think it's very easy to pick out videos that have been this do it yourself, or you had your camera, you walk around filming, as opposed to something professional. I'm a big Shark Tank fan. And I just know when somebody's got a professional video, those sharks light up because they can see exactly what it is that the person is representing. They can watch their clients enjoying the product or service. So it tells a story in a very succinct and quick way.
That's right, Dr. Jacalyn. And a lot of people think that working with a professional production company means something's going to be overproduced. They have sort of an image of those rolling trumpets and violins and sweeping. Yeah, that's a style, and that's a style that may not fit the message. It's about brand authenticity. Dolly Parton once said it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. God bless her. She's one of the greatest talents in country music. And she had the confidence to be able to say that about herself, right? In jest. But there's an interesting corollary there, right? She has a brand. She had an experience that to this day holds up because it's authentic. Okay. So even when we talk about a professional company handling your video, it can still look very gritty. It can still be very edgy. The script can push the limits. It can use humor. It can inject irony. Okay. And still look very rough, but at the same time be professional in the sense that it's delivered in a way that, quite frankly, gets people like the guys on the Shark Tank to pay attention. Yeah. And you make a great point about that. Once upon a time, people relied on a PowerPoint, even in an investor meeting, to get that your first $10,000, your first $50,000. That works. God bless you. Grab it, think through the brand story, and keep building on it. But eventually, when you're going for that $1 million raise or $2 million seed fund, Series B, you had better have a representative video that showcases what you're trying to do. Similarly, I talk often to my friends in private equity and places where they're trying to help a company achieve a liquidity event, maybe selling a family business, dad's passing the baton and we need a buyer. What is a better way of showcasing the maturity and sophistication of the operations of that company than to show the organization and the product and the people? Talking head interviews from customers. There's millions of ways that you can think through a message and get just the right piece of it to serve the purpose of why you're trying to communicate a given message in the first place.
That's great.
That is great. And we have to take a break, but Christopher, a quick question that I have for you is, I'm just thinking off the cuff. So we interview a lot of people who are creatives and they need something called a sizzle reel, which is a video that really shows their talents and some of the things they've accomplished. Is that something that PMI can help them with?
Absolutely. In fact, selfishly, at the end of the show, I'll give you the link to ours. We call it a show. We call it a show reel because, we let the clients use the adjectives. But yeah, absolutely. There's lots of clever ways to do that. And to Al's earlier point about incorporating motion design and animation, 2D or 3D animation, there's a great marriage there in a sizzle reel that has those elements that get people excited. The colors, the vibrancy, the movement. Is a great way to do, a 30-second spot like that. We do those all the time for companies large and small.
Great.
Thank you, Christopher. As I mentioned, we're going to take a quick break, and then Mr. Cini will bring us back. All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our ministry alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Al Cini, and Dr. Jacalyn is right over there. And it's always great working with you. And right down there, we've got Chris Evans of PMI. And, you know, Chris, during the break, I was thinking about ways to connect with our audience based on what you're telling us. Yeah. And, and so I'm going to start with this. Sure. There are a bunch of different ways that you can produce a video, and various different formats you can produce it in. You can produce it, there's this thing called aspect ratio, which we're doing 16:9. But for social media, maybe you want it to be 9:16, or maybe you want it to be square. These are all reasons why it pays to talk to somebody who understands that language before you start spending money on video. Isn't that true?
Al, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was hoping we would talk a little bit about that because, yes, and this changes very quickly. You know, today we're talking about some of the biggest trends of 2021 going into next year, pandemic, post-pandemic, pandemic 2, who knows? One thing I can tell you is the evolution of where audiences consume video is going to continue to evolve, and it's probably going to evolve quickly. So yes, vertical video is very important. Being able to capture the right kind of visuals for the screens that we're going to be putting the video on is very important. Guiding through that, and again, almost reverse engineering it back to the script and the creative is imperative. You know, we talked earlier about OTT and some of these other things as well. And there's lots of things that organizations can do that in the category of ephemeral video for Snapchat and Instagram. Look, for brands, you want to have a cohesive strategy that makes sense. Live where your audience is going to be. Don't just read about something in a magazine and say, I need to be there. Use some thoughtful processes and some data to guide where we're trying to reach your audience. Once we know that, we can talk about screen size and the right kind of video that fits both the audience and where they're living.
That's great.
I was wondering, just for people
who YouTube channel. Sorry, Dr. Jacalyn, I forgot to say, we want to impart that. You know, it's always great for a company to have their own YouTube channel so that we can do lots of these types of videos over time and build a library. And of course, that ultimately comes back to search engine optimization and search engine marketing as well. Please go ahead, Dr. Jacalyn. My apologies for stepping on you there.
Oh, no, that's okay. So for people who don't know what OTT is, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is not to be confused with that 1990s hip hop song OPP. Are you down with OPP? Remember that one too, yeah. The Wayback Machine. OTT, don't let it intimidate you, folks. It's over the top. Literally, if you picture your television and you see the box that sits there, and it is a way of communicating that's how people consume television today. Not necessarily on a classic schedule of broadcast TV at 4, 6, and 9 p.m. Okay, today you may be coming home from work or leaving your living room from work and matriculating over to the den and popping on your TV, and you're watching things on your DVR, episodes of Barefoot Contessa that may be 6 months old. Using an analogy here, there are ways to place your video ads there. It's very similar to how we would do it for broadcast, but it's all about the placement where the audience lives, following them and going to the material they consume, where they consume it, and when they want to consume it. I'll give you another specific example of this. If you've spent any time on YouTube, perhaps it's not even your television in the living room, perhaps it's your iPad, maybe it's even your mobile device. You're watching a podcast or listening to a podcast, advertising where the viewer and where your audience is. So building videos that can be shorter, to the point pieces that appear in between, interspersed with that programming is very important. But that's OTT.
No, that's, you mentioned YouTube, and I do want to point out that curating the content on your YouTube channel is just as important as posting new things on it. There comes a time when there are some videos on your YouTube channel that you probably ought to make private or take down altogether.
Sure.
Mixing your company message videos with your cat's second birthday party is probably not the smartest way to use YouTube. Just to say.
Yeah, that's a safe assumption, Al.
because you can see all of it there. And, I'd like to know that there's a little bit of a wall in your brain between what you do for a living and what you do at home. I don't necessarily want to see all of that at once.
Well, perhaps the most interesting phenomenon over the past few years, if you're a classic marketer, is watching the rise and fall of Instagram and social media celebrities and influencers, people that are paid hundreds of dollars in material merchandise, especially in the fitness space, to rep particular brands of proteins. And, you don't even have to be an avid devotee of the gym to see it. It's there. But I think it's something to watch and to understand, and, make sure you're aligning a brand influencer that also reflects your brand values. Sure. Because again, that's going to be very careful. It's one thing to be popular. It's another thing to have your brand in the hands of a representative of the organization that may not reflect. God forbid they get into some trouble. Your brand's represented by those people. So, sometimes it's better to be careful and cautious who you align with, even if easy celebrity is something that a commercial product good seeks. When I think of the trusted brands that, have survived the test of time, they have entire departments dedicated to this type of discussions. The small business owner may not have that, but use good judgment and be cautious. Work with people and partner with people you can trust, so that the people that are talking about and re-sharing your information are people that you want. We've seen a lot of that on Twitter, of course, over the last couple of years. And this, again, you have to keep up with it. It changes every few weeks, it seems like, right? But there's ways to navigate it that are not so scary.
I'm thinking to myself while you're talking. Billionaires with cowboy hats on top of rocket ships are not necessarily on-brand videos, are they?
Well, it depends. It's hard to begrudge people that are trying to do entrepreneurial things, but certainly it depends on the mood that given day of the country. You can watch somebody do something that seems innocuous, not even going to space with a cowboy hat. And if the wrong set of people don't like what you're doing, let's face it, we live in pretty unusually heavily, even still politically charged times, and everybody has an opinion on everything out there. So it's harder to have the classic control over a brand story that people like myself used to cherish in the chair of a CMO. But today you have to kind of respect the realities of the marketplace, how that works, and try to make sure that you're harnessing the most positive places and people that can influence your brand message. One of the biggest keys about that is to be very cautious about the message you're sending, to be very thoughtful about the climate in the country and what your product may or may not do, whether that's sustainability, whether it has to do with the environment, whether it has to do with social justice. These are very daunting, important areas, and you have to have a brand opinion on that. And there are professional firms that even PMI would probably partner with or turn to advise under that counsel, because it's such a serious thing that can certainly influence a video. But I would hasten to say, you have to be very careful what you put out there. And today's story is today's story. Tomorrow's is another. But you don't want to spend a long time unringing a bell that may have negative connotations if you can avoid it.
Can cost you a fortune.
Very true.
Put you out of business. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that yesterday I was listening on Clubhouse to Breakfast of Champions. I don't know if you guys ever tune into that, but the topic was about these influencers on TikTok and Instagram, and they've got, millions, tens of millions of people following them. But yet, what is the message that they're bringing in terms of being of service to others? And also, what is their branding? So yes, they're representing XYZ product, or they made this great video that they're getting paid a certain amount of money. But to your point, Christopher, that could be fly by night. It could end up being politically charged. And so you even have to, as a business, watch what you like and who you're aligning yourself with.
That's right, Dr. Jacalyn.
With social media.
That's dead on. And the easiest way to avoid some of that is to rise above that and control your own brand narrative on your channels at your pace, at your tenure. These types of videos can help control certain aspects of what you want communicated out there. I, again, would almost say for a brand to elevate themselves above some of that noise, yes, it is real. Yes, there's action there and there's ways of moving the needle. But I think there are perhaps, personally, I think safer alternatives, leveraging different channels of reaching the right kind of audience with your message. Again, consumer product with marketing is a whole different ball of wax than when you're looking at different other types of video communications. But putting together a very thoughtful approach and understanding where your audience lives and targeting them directly with a message that that you can control, I think is important. And having two-way conversations with your customers. Be responsive to feedback you get on social media. Nothing will upset you more if you spend $28,000 on a video and the comments in YouTube are all about how the product doesn't work. So be prepared to address that for sure.
That's for sure. And, I know before we get to the end of the program, I do want to mention kind of an underserved market when it comes to video, and that's not-for-profits. Mm-hmm. There are companies out there that do terrific community service type work.
Yes.
Who could raise more money if they just told that story in a more compelling way?
Yes.
Do you work with not-for-profits, Chris?
But boy, do we ever. Earlier I had mentioned, and I'll give them a little plug, they do such amazing work, 412 Food Rescue, which helps put food in the hands of needy people here, door delivery service in the Pittsburgh region. And they have affiliates like Philly Food Rescue and other groups around the country. That's just one example. We do a lot of work with them. We produced that impact report, the print version, as well as a number of animations and video features for them. We do provide a not-for-profit discount to any organization that qualifies. And PMI does a lot of work in that space also. We've worked with everyone from, on a national level, Salvation Army and United Way, to smaller charities that help the community, get messaging out. And we recognize some of the limitations of both the budget and, frankly, the marketing horsepower that may exist in an organization like that. And our team loves working with them. It's feel-good work, right? It's work that makes a difference. Humane Animal Rescue, a big client of ours. We're all dog and cat people. You probably hear a couple in the background as I ventured outdoors today. But our team really, when we were in the studio 5 days a week, we would bring our dogs and cats with us. That's PMI for you. But, Humane Animal Rescue is a great example. I can actually share metrics with you of how much they were able to raise as a result of the video we created for them last year and the year before. It's incredible to see how that ups donations and engagement. Another group here locally that we're working with is Auberly, which provides foster services to needy children and young adults, as well as job placement services and things like that for older kids. They're doing God's work, I can tell you, and we help them produce a virtual and live hybrid fundraiser, and are working on another campaign with them right now that's designed to help educate families in the across the region how inclusive they are and welcoming they are if you're interested in fostering a child or potentially leading to adoption. So we do lots of work with those types of groups and have for many, many years. Arguably, I think it's some of our favorite kind of work. And what's beautiful, and selfishly for us, I can say this, how they're getting the same level of creative juice that those big, large commercial brands that we work with get too. So it's a really finished, beautiful, polished product they can be very proud of from a visual communications perspective. And we love doing it. We love helping each other and helping the community whenever we can.
Great stories about making a difference. That's terrific, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chris. That's really important. We do have a couple of comments from Joe Loney, who's watching on LinkedIn. Hi, Joe. Nice to have you. And also, hi at Ives. Great content. Thanks. And I see there are a bunch of folks on Facebook who are watching. So great. Thank you. Yeah. Well, so, Christopher, I'm wondering, what's the future look like for PMI? What do you guys have on the horizon?
Thank you for asking that. That's a really exciting, awesome question. When I joined the team, and I've known the company for many years and have always respected PMI as a powerhouse of this type of visual communication. I joined the team about 2 years ago, and we've been on a track to expand our reach even further across the United States and servicing different regions. So national expansion is a big deal. I think the last 3 deals I did weren't in the Pittsburgh region, if you can believe that. They were from Florida, DC, California, all over. So we are a company without borders, and we're going to continue to target market ourselves in the right types of influencer circles and groups that can learn about the work we're doing. And I myself have been a part of a number of national conferences this year, most of them virtual, given the nature of everything we're going through, but certainly in person as well. So national expansion is a big piece for us. We've expanded our creative direction talent in here. We have a creative director out on the West Coast whose work is exceptional. We also have a person who's been in an agency setting for over 15 years who's joined our team. So actually have a full creative suite of script writers and talent here in-house that's going to, again, be able to help us produce other types of deliverables in addition to the video work we're known for. And also, I see us becoming a very important player in helping organizations host those hybrid live and virtual events. Again, lots of things on the horizon we're looking at here with coming out of the pandemic and perhaps maybe dipping back in with this new Delta variant. The virtual event is not going away. It's going to have to evolve, and it has to be done more effectively. Virtual conferences, we produce those types of things and have a lot of partners that can help us facilitate that for companies of all sizes. So I think we're going to be doing a whole heck of a lot more of that. We're going to be releasing a new website with some of the longer form work we're doing also. It's a newer area for a lot of companies to get into, but what's what they call longer storytelling, mini documentaries, pieces that are really more series oriented, that are a deep dive behind the scenes of an organization's operations. We're doing tons of work like that now, because again, it's not always just about grabbing someone's attention and getting them to go to the website. That's a piece of it. But when you're trying to communicate more sophisticated, deeper messages, longer form storytelling is really exciting. And, even helping, put visuals to podcasts and things like that. So we're following the market very carefully. Our executive leadership here has been in lockstep with investing in the right areas so that we can grow and change and be around for another 35 years. And certainly my role in the company as our head of sales and my role in the brand is excited to see that trajectory. But look for us to be doing a lot of exciting things. We also have 2 movie productions that are underway currently. We're hoping to get those wrapped and into Netflix or into the theaters. Again, lots of variables the next couple of years. But so again, continuing our foray into deeper and longer form filmmaking is another area. And quite candidly, being able to serve what the market needs. Shorter form things for social, shorter pieces for web, eye-catching things that grab you and get you in. So any device, any medium, that's where PMI is living and helping our clients make intelligent decisions about what to build and where to put it.
Critical. I know we're getting ready to wrap, but there's so much of value here. I want to make one more connection for people that are watching and listening. We've been doing a lot of work lately with universities, but for charter schools, private schools, colleges, and universities, a great thing to add to a grant application is a compelling video explaining how you intend to use the money.
Absolutely.
And that really should be professionally produced. I don't know whether you've done work like that, but
we sure have. Yeah, Al, we've, locally here with Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh, for many years, we've been a part of their key productions. We've also done some really cool stuff recently with the University of Houston down in Texas. A lot of that being really sophisticated motion design and animation, which is a really cool way to tell that story. And of course, the compelling student impact videos that help students make decisions about whether it's distance learning or on-campus attendance. We do a boatload of work in that regard too. And again, I'm not limited by geography, quite candidly. So if we're sending a crew down to film in another part of the country and running all the post-production here through our facilities in Pittsburgh, piece of cake. Adding the motion design and frankly helping them elevate the brands too. So universities are really have always been a big piece of the work that we do, and we love it. We love working with them also.
I'd love to hear that you're full service, and really anything we've asked you, it's a yes. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do
Yeah, for the most part, Dr. Jacalyn, anybody who tells you they can do anything is probably not really being honest. And I don't wish to, I should say there's a threshold I can't help with. If someone has, $2,000 and wants a throwaway video and it's something quick and cheap, I'm probably not the most effective choice for them. We're not the most effective choice for them. But if they have, at least a bit of spend behind it and a bit of thought around the brand story, yes. I've yet to be turned down for something that's too big. Sometimes we'll walk away from something if it's a one-off, or if they're really scraping to get by, it may not be the best use of their capital. But, I think Al said something earlier. If you're not in this business, it's hard to understand what things cost. And everything has a cost associated to it. Are we doing hair and makeup? Are we doing live action? Are we incorporating stock? Do we have music licensing? There's lots of pieces that come into that. But the beautiful thing is if an organization can say, we're looking at this, X or Y threshold of spend, what can we do for that? That's a very different discussion. And then we can look at what makes sense for them, whether it be an animated piece or, again, a hybrid animated or live action. There's lots of options. But yeah, when it comes to types of clients, we've done it all. Last week was just working with a company that's doing some top secret work with the United States government in drone technologies. That's about all I can say, or they might come zap me off the deck here. But so we're doing some pretty high end stuff with them. Very sophisticated company, and it's their very first time trying to elevate the brand through video beyond what they've captured on iPhone and things like that. So they're ready to go and make a pitch to the B2B sector, relying on some of the experience that they've captured in the governments. But it's a very exciting time for them, and we're going to play a very critical role in that brand story. And tourism. Look, as we do reopen, that small hotel, that restaurant, they need to make sure people understand they're able to serve and they're ready, they're clean, they're open. We can help tell that story. We do a lot of really great work in that space too. So yeah, and we again have to stay ahead of where the money goes. Tech is a big place. Tech is a hot space for us because, and Al and I talked about this a little bit offline, it's sometimes very hard to understand what software does, even if you're a technology savvy person. So having that animated explainer video showcase what the product does, or something you can't necessarily touch and feel, very powerful stuff.
Well, I love what you're doing, and the fact that video really can change trajectory for a business or for a product or for a service or for a person, and how you get your own personal brand out there. So Christopher, what's the best way for people to reach you, and who should reach out to you?
Yeah, we welcome anybody who's interested in learning more about producing any of the types of things that we've talked about here today. If you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to visit our website, www.pmidigital.com. You can also send us an email at info@pmidigital.com. We certainly have a Vimeo page you can visit. We're all over Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. We have a really wonderful show reel that's a 60-second highlight reel, a montage of a lot of the beautiful work that we've done for everybody from Mitsubishi to Rolex is up there, and to companies that you haven't heard of but you will hear of. So please take a visit up there. Email us if you have some questions, if you'd like to learn more. Tell your friends. Chances are you know someone who's going to be investing in this type of medium, and we'd love to help. We do incredible work, very well referenced, and a very well established company that can really help make a brand stand out from the crowd.
Great work, Chris.
Thanks,
Excellent, Al. Christopher. Thank you. And for anybody who joined us late, you can go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, and you can watch the full broadcast there. This is one you don't want to miss because it really can pertain to everyone.
Thank you both for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and wishing everyone a lot of health, success, prosperity in what's left of 2021. Hard to believe we're halfway through.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Christopher. It's nice seeing you again.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you, Al.
Bye-bye. Bye. Lots of great information there, Mr. Cini.
Well, knowing that I can go back to YouTube and watch it again means I didn't have to take notes. But for people out there who may have missed any of it, it's worth going back and watching it, because there are so many things you need to consider in order to create an effective representation of your brand in video or animated format. And PMI sounds like the company to call.
I would agree. And I also meant to ask Christopher, he spoke about events, virtual events. So I think as we get back into traveling and going to events, maybe we want to consider some virtual aspect of it where people from all over the world can actually attend your event without actually getting in a car or an airplane. And PMI can help with that as well.
And one last thing, for the next billionaire astronaut out there that plans to launch themselves into space, although space is being used in a very narrow in a very narrow way. 50 miles up isn't space to me. But if you're going to go all the way up there and come all the way back down, you might want to have somebody like Chris along for the ride with a camera to record it all and make sure that it's done right.
Good point, Mr. Cini. What's the best way people can get in touch with you, and who should reach out to you?
My email address is al.cini@getbcat.com. And people we like to talk to are owners of small and medium-sized businesses, HR directors with a focus on talent. We also like talking with chief marketing officers that are looking for a way to personify their brand, which ultimately then could translate into the kind of compelling script and visuals that you need to make a great video. So we could be a good first step in that process.
All right. Thank you very much. Al, how would you like to close out the show with our audience? Any words of wisdom from you?
I'm tapped out on wisdom, Dr. Jacalyn, but thank you for asking. It's only the middle of the week and already I'm totally out of wisdom. The only wisdom I can offer is one that we repeat a lot, which is, if you think that 2021 and 2022 are about getting back to 2019, then you didn't learn anything from 2020. So going forward, remember, the world never goes backward. It only goes. There's no reverse in this car that we're riding in. And so stay up with things. Think new thoughts. You can't remember the future.
I like that. Excellent. And I want to leave our audience with, if they'd like to be a guest on the show, this show is booked until the 3rd week of December. We've been booked out at least 6 months in advance, but we'd love to have you on the show. So please go to our website, drjacalyn.com, and you can book your spot there.
Great.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Cini. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Dr. Jacalyn. Real pleasure for me, as always.
I just want to let our audience know that our show, the next show, is In the Name of Love. And my guest just contacted me and said there's been an emergency. So we will not be streaming that show this evening. We will reschedule that. So it was lovely having you here. Again, please go to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV. And we would love to have you subscribe to our channel. Also, we have a program called A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. This is a presentation platform, and we are always looking for coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors who have information to share from their experience in life. So you get to come on and present a 15-minute lesson. Then we'll ask you to put together a 5-question quiz, and you can develop your own playlist of lessons, 8 to 10 lessons with quizzes, and put them up for sale on our online learning platform that is coming out soon. You can earn passive income. So we are taking interviews for people who are interested in joining our team. And again, you can go over to drjacalyn.com. Everything is there. Thank you again for being with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Christopher. Thank you to Mr. Cini. It was nice seeing you. And we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow when we start with 5 to 9 Club Creatives. And my co-host is Deborah Wooten from Pinewood Studios. See you again. Bye.